Hey guys, I thought I would pop in here and just share a little bit about my process creating this portrait in charcoal. So to start off with, I'm using Vine charcoal here. That's not any particular brand in this instance. There are times that I do prefer a brand, but this is all going to get covered up, this Vine charcoal here. So at this point for me, it doesn't matter what kind. I like to use it because you can see it erases really easily, and I keep changing my mind a lot throughout this process. That's one of the things that I emphasize with my teaching. It's not about measuring it perfectly from the beginning and getting it just right. It's about continually making more and more accurate guesses and getting closer and closer to accuracy as you go along. So it doesn't need to start off that way. I keep everything really geometric and break things down, trying to relate the different features to the outside of the face instead of just relating the features to each other. And then I block in everything light half and shadow half. So you can still see at this point, I'm still using that stick of Vine charcoal. Everything is still really malleable and erasable. Also, I know that here my drawing looks way wider than the reference photo. And I know it sounds like I'm making excuses, but there is an angle to the camera. This was done during a live class, so the camera was over my shoulder, so everything that's closer to the camera is bigger and the angles are different than what's further away. Tried to correct it as much as possible, but it just kind of is what it is. So please keep that in mind and forgive me there. But I do make mistakes and I do change things. So notice, for example, right now that mouth is way too far forward compared to the rest of the face. So that's something that you're going to see me correct on here. And I like to show people that process, and I like to show people that I don't start off with it perfect. I make huge errors just like everybody else, and then I correct them. That's just part of the process, and that's totally fine. So you can see that I smeared the portrait, and now I am beginning to really delicately build up some white charcoal on this. So what I really wanted to express with this portrait and what I really wanted to show is this feeling that the face and the hair are kind of emerging from the background. So I'm wanting to use a lot of lost edges, and so I want, even though this is all done on dark paper and it's kind of dramatic, I wanted that face to just slowly emerge from the background. So I'm using really light hatch marks there with the pencil and trying to, just follow the form and really slowly build things up. So it's going to take me quite a while before I get to the eyes and the white of the eye and the nostrils and stuff like that. Because really what I want to do is I want to get a sense of the skull and what's happening with the forehead and the cheek and the bridge of the nose and all those bigger shapes on the face. I want to start there instead of in those facial features, because if those facial features are floating in this formless area, it doesn't make as much sense. We can recognize somebody just by seeing the forms of their forehead and their cheeks and stuff like that. We can just recognize them without those facial features. So I think here you can kind of see what I mean about, building the skull and building the form, that we can really start to see the likeness emerge just with that. So here I am starting to get into the eyes. I started at the brow, moved down to the light underneath the brow and the eyelid, and got that before getting the edge of the eyelid. So I like to work kind of around the eye socket and then spiral inward toward the eye. So the iris is really the last thing that I'm going to do. I get the white of the eye. I kind of think about the white of the eye there. I'm just using it really gently, because if you use a lot of white in the white of the eye, people look terrified or really angry or something. So you just want to use that really delicately. And I do go back and forth a little bit with where I place that iris, where I place the whites of the eye, because it's malleable and you just keep changing. Your first guess will be pretty good, your second guess will even be better, your third attempt should be pretty spot on. So even then, I don't bring the eye all the way up to a finish. I worked on it, I got some more shape in there, but I didn't get the highlight, I didn't get all the detail because I want to continue to work on the whole face and continue to bring everything into proportion and into relationship with each other, and then come back to the highlights in the eye. Since this hair disappearing into the background is such an important aspect to this particular drawing to me, I really spent a lot of time with a stick of General's charcoal instead of just the pencils, really filling in the hair, filling in the top that she's wearing, and the background, and using a blending stump and a fluffy brush to push all that back and create a lot of softness and a lot of velvety darkness. And then I'm going to build up texture on the hair over the top of that. It's really important that you don't add texture on the hair into the shadows in general. This is true also with oil painting, so if you're interested, I have a video on how to paint hair in oil, so check out that video. I'll leave a link in the description below. But really you want those shadows to be quiet, and the highlights are where you're going to see a lot of texture and those edges of the highlights. So I'm back to building up the form now. That's just kind of a continuous thing, and in just a little bit you're going to see me begin to add some highlights on the hair. So like I said here, I'm just beginning those highlights on the hair using, real wispy kind of motions. And I'm not trying to draw really individual hairs. I'm not getting in there with my hand close to the end of the pencil and really drawing one line after another. It's just the same motion that I'm using with shading, maybe just with a little bit of a curve on it, right? But really going back over the same spot a few times is good in comparison to making long individual highlight marks, because those long marks tend to make the hair look like spaghetti. The highlights are actually probably a lot smaller than you think, but if you go overboard with it a little bit too much, don't worry about it, because you can always use more black charcoal to come in over the top of that. At least that works if you have a good paper and you have a lot of tooth in that paper so that it can handle multiple layers. But you'll see me just slowly add layers and slowly build up lighter and lighter lights in there in the hair. Very little of it is really, really very, very white. Most of it is just a light coating of white on there with just small highlights reserved to be really bright. You can see I've really got multiple layers of detail here in the eyes, not bringing it all up to finish at once. And even after I added the highlights previously, I included that detail, which is that the one eye has a much brighter highlight than the other eye. So they're not just totally matchy-matchy, because one is a little bit more toward the shadow than the other. Of course, I do want to get a little bit of that satin in here as well, and that kind of lightly reflective texture of the satin, and bring that forward. As I finish up this drawing, just adding final details, pushing some things back, bringing them forward. If you would like to learn more about drawing and drawing the portrait, check out my website, schoolofrealistart.com. I have foundational classes in drawing for total beginners. I have a free 5-day drawing transformation challenge, which is a 5-part free video lesson series, and I'm also offering a portrait drawing in graphite and charcoal online course. This is something you can take live with me. You can also do it by self-study, and you get to keep the pre-recorded lessons forever. And occasionally I add new lessons on there too. This drawing is in one of those lessons. You can see me do it in real time, every single mark. So thank you for joining me here today, and I hope to see you again soon.